XRP finds itself in a ranging market where the bulls and the bears are fighting over control. In this video, we're going to jump into the technical analysis of XRP, and I will share my thoughts and opinions on what I think will be the outcome. As I get into the video, if you find it useful and informative, smash that like button. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe? You can always unsubscribe later. And if you haven't joined us in Discord, check it out. Linked in the description below. It's a fantastic community, talking crypto 24/7, and it is the first place that we go to notify you of everything that's going on in the crypto space. So why not check it out, linked in the description below. Let's jump right down into this video. So we are only a few days away now from the Hinman emails being listed and publicly and kind of shared with everybody, and we'll truly see the corruption within the SEC. We've seen that the SEC's website has been updated with certain things of Hinman being removed. This is all in preparation to try to, at least in my opinion, the SEC to distance themselves from Hinman, but you know, they're all in bed with each other nonetheless. We know it's corrupt, and I think in the next few days it's all going to be crystal clear just how corrupt the SEC is. We see lots of things going on with 𝗕𝗓𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘. His head will roll, in my opinion. He will be the fall man for a lot of this stuff, and I don't feel sorry for him whatsoever. He has clearly been acting under someone else's personal interests and not the interests of the retail investors that he is supposed to be protecting. He's spouting all sorts of nonsense, things that do not make any sense. They're illogical, and I hope that he doesn't fare too well in his career. I hope he is done. Obviously, that won't be what happens because, you know, these scummy politician type people, they will always be successful in some way or another, but I like to think that karma will eventually catch up with him. After causing billions of dollars of damage to retail investors, he continues to cause billions of dollars of retail damage to other retail investors and other ecosystems all around the world. The man is a criminal, in my opinion, and should be punished accordingly. Let's jump into the technical analysis rant over. So XRP, what's going on? Well, XRP, in my opinion, shows a need and a requirement to potentially push a little bit deeper to the downside. Okay, we're not quite there yet, and there's a few interesting things that are telling me that maybe the bears have control at the moment. Let's go ahead and just show you the first couple of these. That's the wrong tool. I want the parallel channel. There we go. So I'm just going to kind of take some snippets here. I'm going to draw this in, and we're going to put this in here. Okay, this here is a rising channel, and these typically have a bearish outcome. So when price goes up into higher highs and higher lows, more than often than not, we see a break to the downside. Now, sometimes it can be just a short move, and sometimes it can be a much bigger move. For example, let me go ahead and show you a couple others in here that kind of show this point over and over, right? So if I just roughly draw this one in here, you see that we're in higher highs, higher lows. We broke down, right? The same thing can be said when we find these smaller channels, right here, for example, right? Higher highs, higher lows, small breakdown, then we broke up, right? So all it's saying is that we are likely to see a move to the downside. It can be small, it can be large, right? We don't necessarily know the size of what that's going to be, but we kind of have to prepare ourselves for momentum shifting, and we're likely to see some kind of downward pressure. That's not a guarantee. It's just an observation that we can see within the charts, and they have a habit of repeating themselves quite consistently. And the reverse is also true. Okay, so for example, in here, badly draw that on, but I'll try. We can see that if I tilt this correctly, we were going down into lower highs and lower lows, and we broke upwards. Okay, and again, if I grab another one of these, you can kind of see there's actually a really bad example because this one hasn't really broken upwards, but we can draw it in nonetheless. Here you kind of broke out of it, but then we got dragged down again. Okay, find one that's be a little bit more, yep, right over here. So there's one over here. Okay, you can draw these time and time again. You can see them all over the place, and we broke upwards, right? And so where we are right now, essentially, is unfortunately in the bearish side of that, okay? And we can think of these things also as continuation patterns if you want. It's entirely up to you how you want to look at it. Continuation pattern is probably a nice, neat way of looking at it. But nonetheless, I'll kind of show you what that might look like, okay? And so as you can kind of see on the bigger scale, it doesn't necessarily work as well as we were looking at it previously. But when we start thinking about this, we can start to think, okay, well, we can see that there's an obvious area just down here where we potentially are likely to move and gravitate down towards. Okay, so Smart Money Concepts is at the moment in a bearish state of play. I think this is a false flag myself, because when we pair up 𝗕𝗓𝗪𝗓 with Smart Money, they should normally come together and kind of give us an idea of where the market is going. Sometimes, and from time to time, Smart Money Concepts, being the fact that it's algorithmic, is giving us the occasional false flag. And I think that's what this is, because 𝗕𝗓𝗪𝗓 theory and Smart Money are not agreeing right now with what is potentially going to happen here. Okay, so we should note that. Now, of course, 𝗕𝗓𝗪𝗓 could be wrong. It's maybe not tracking perfectly well. Maybe I've got my waves in the incorrect places, which is possible. I just don't necessarily think that's what is going on here, mainly because what I think is going on is that we have a irregular flat correction here, and Smart Money Concepts wouldn't know that. Okay, Smart Money Concepts would look at this maybe as more of a, B, C structure like this, and still for bearish, right, and hence the bearish flag. But when I look at it, I think we're probably more than anything doing an irregular flat correction right in here. Maybe that's just my hope that, you know, that's what's going on, but that's kind of how I would look at it. Then we moved up, we moved down, up, and I think we've got to come down into this range, but not down lower, and then we break up again. So I think we've got to do something like this. We come up here to come down here. Yeah, and then all of that is essentially breaking inside of this move, take it upside here where we get a double top scenario. And like I said, it's a ranging market. We're not terribly doing too much here. We're kind of stuck between two places. The high up here at 54.7 and the low down here at 48.67. Okay, so for the most part, we're just stuck between these two things, and we're two prices, and we're trying to ascertain where we think that next big move is being, right? We don't really generally care too much about the smaller movements, although there's a pretty big gap between 48 and 54 cent, and we're bouncing around a little bit in there. What we're really wanting to do is coil up for a big break, right? And we can't quite see it yet. Now, the other thing that's also really interesting to me, if I draw a trend line on the upper side, we can see that we're down into lower highs. But if we draw this on the low side here, and I'll just take it out to kind of marry up with that, we can see that we've only really got one test down on this low range. Whereas if we to come down and complete this C, that's a secondary test. And we could be coiling up into something really big here. Okay, and we might not be able to see it just yet. And so we might find ourselves maybe not with a giant ABC structure like this, but maybe more of a coiled up position for a big break to the upside. Let's bring this out for a moment. Okay, so we can see this kind of wedge happening right up in here. Now, this particular wedge could be the break that we're looking for to the upside. It's a potential continuation of what led into it, and what led into it was a pretty big move to the upside. Okay, so we want to be a little bit aware of that as an option as well. We'd also have to take it to this position rather than this one here. So this could all be just a corrective structure for a bigger break to the upside, and we could argue that it even started all the way down there, and when we exit out of this, it could be another really big shot to the upside here as well. Okay, now that could be hopium, but for the most part, looking at the structures of things, you know, I think that's kind of where we might end up sitting. What I think's actually occurred right now is more of a false flag like this one here. Okay, so we were in a bullish structure. Okay, we have this kind of correction coming down, giving us this idea that we're bearish, and then we come up and we break up and we get that bullish structure there. So from an 𝗕𝗓𝗪𝗓 theory point of view, that's kind of where I think things are heading. I think we're going to be seeing this coil up a little bit. We might see some volatility over the next few days, and then the Hinman emails will be made public, and I think that's really where that next big surge will come. Once the kind of public are made fully aware of the level of corruption within the SEC, I think it's going to basically create a little bit of a run on all crypto, XRP included. The big kind of swing for XRP, I think, will come much later once we see closure to the case, which won't happen right away. We'll see that further down the line. Now, it's possible, of course, that the SEC will do some kind of settlement agreement with Ripple, but at this point, I think maybe Ripple will want to make an example of the SEC, and maybe an agreement cannot be met. But we'll see how it kind of plays. I think these emails are going to be absolutely critical of everything that Brad Garlinghouse is talking about. The emails are so damning to the SEC that I think a win is highly likely, and Brad Garlinghouse is incredibly confident in that. So for Brad to be that confident and coming out with that much confidence makes me incredibly bullish on XRP. So looking at all of these opportunities as price might come down as opportunities to accumulate XRP before we actually have that kind of email notification or email out in the public domain that allows us to understand with pure clarity that ultimately, 𝗕𝗏𝗪's speech was not personal opinion. It was the opinion of the SEC. The SEC had given that, and they continue to hide behind this idea that there are personal thoughts and opinions. And I think once all that kind of comes out, we're going to see just how corrupt the SEC are, that they're not giving clarity. They don't want to be perceived giving clarity, but they want to enforce and they want to rob retail investors of their hard-earned money. And it's very clear that that is the agenda behind the SEC, and whoever is pulling the strings of Mr. Puppet Man Gsela, that is the agenda, in my eyes anyway. As a foreigner to the US and just an outside observer, it looks like the US have got some serious corruption issues within their seats of power. And it's not just the US, it is here in the UK as well, and we see this all the time. But for the most part, to have something come out and in the public domain, I think it's an opportunity for the public to right these many wrongs. And I think class action lawsuits should be filed against personally Gary Gensler and 𝗕𝗏𝗪 and Jay Clayton as well. They've all played critical roles in causing billions of dollars worth of damage, and I think all of them should serve jail time, in my opinion. But that being said, I'm going to jump off that political high horse there and try to focus more on the fact that I think XRP will be successful in the long term, regardless of what these clowns in government think that they can do. Ultimately, crypto is for the people, it is not for them, and the people need to start making a stand, in my opinion. That being said, I'm going to leave the video right here. If you found it useful and informative, smash the like button. If you are new to the channel, then why not subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next one.
We are not financial advisors. None of what we have communicated verbally or in writing here should be considered as financial advice. It is not. Do your own research before investing in any digital asset or affiliate offers, and understand that investing in any crypto is risky. If you do, you need to be prepared to lose your entire investment. This video is for information and entertainment purposes only. All other videos are strictly personal opinions. Please make sure you do your own research and never take our opinions for financial guidance. There are multiple strategies, and not all strategies fit all people. Our videos are not financial advice.